Hello everyone, welcome to the new video in the series of complete guide to Roam in Android. So in this video, we will apply navigation between screens in the previous module. In the previous lecture, we have start working on student module, which have two screens. One is student listing screen, and the other one is student detail screen, also used to new student as well. So we apply the navigation between these two screens, also pass data from one screen to another, and the third one will be show the dummy students information in the listing and in the detail screen. So this will be the goal of this video. This is an optional video, so if you already know the UI and navigation basics, then you can move to the next video to just only understand the room library part, as goal of this series is to provide complete guide with practical examples. So I will include the UI and navigation stuff in the series, but that would be an optional one. So let's continue with today's video. So here is our initial project. You can find the initial code for this video on the video description below. So in this video, to apply the navigation between these screens and pass the data, we will add a few dependencies in our app level Gradle file. In here, these dependencies will be required to add. You can find these dependencies on the from the video description below. So we will paste these dependencies here. The one is for view model, the other one is for compose navigation, and the third one is for JSON serialization. And we also need to add this part in our top of the file in the plugin sections and sync the project. So our project has been successfully synced. So now we will define our screens. So in our project in here we will as we have these two screens, so we will define these screens just like this. We will create a file named as app screens, which would be an interface. We will make it sailed interface, and in that we will create a first data object to represent students screen, and the second one for add student, and we will annotate with these with serialization. We will make them serializable, and now we will create a navigation graph for these. So for that we will go to our main activity, and in here we will use nav host composable, which take nav controller. We will create the instance of nav controller. Remember nav controller, and pass it in here and provide the start destination, and our start destination would be this screen. So app screens dot students, and in here we will provide our screens. So here we will use this composable, and in that we will tell that which screen would this would be, which is students, and in that we will present the component of this particular screen. So we have students screen, and same way for other screen. Composable add screens dot add student, and in here we will use this add student screen composable, and we have made our graph. So if we run this at this stage, and we will be able to see our student screen because the initial route is set to students. So let's run and verify that we don't have any bug at this stage. Okay, so our app is successfully up and running, and we are landed on our main screen, which is students screen. So now we will apply the navigation that when we tap on this Fab button, then we will be navigated to the Add Student screen. So for that, first we will do some initial things for our this screen is that we will create the view model for this screen, which would be inherit from view model, and we need to pass this UI action to our view model. So for that, we will define that what actions we can get from our this screen in a separate file. So for that, we will create another file named as students action, and this will be an interface. So we will make it seal interface, and in that we will define this action that fab on click. So data object fab on click, which will be inherit from student section, and we will take this action from the screen and handle it in our view model. So in our view model, we will create a function named as onAction, which take possible action of this screen. We will pass student section, and in that we will have when condition and press Alt Enter to get the possible conditions or possible branches. So here we have this one action only fab on click. Now we need to pass that action from the UI. So for that we will go to our UI component, and in here we have student screen which presents the student's UI. So in that we will pass a lambda function as a parameter which will be named as onAction students action and unit, and we will call this when we user tab on the fab button. So here on click we will call this action and provide the action type of action would be fab on click, and as this action have been this lambda function will be triggered from here. So in our student screen we have this on action, and in this body we will pass this call to our view model. So for that we will inject the view model here by using this view model method, which will be coming from view model.compose dependency, and in here we will pass the view model dot on action and pass the type of action. We can also call this method in a shorter form like this. So in this way, the value of this lambda function will become the parameter for this function. So now our call have been reached in our students view model. So in here we will handle this action that we will create a call a function fab on click, press Alt Enter to create this function, and in this function we will navigate to the next screen. So next screen would be app screens dot add student screen, and now we need to, as view model only contains the data related to any certain screen and business logic of for that screen, but it cannot hold the UI components. Let's say the nav controller which used for navigation is a UI component. We cannot pass that in our view model to perform any action because the life cycle of view model is longer than the UI. So for that we need to To navigate to the next screen, we need to pass an event from our view model to our UI side to perform the relevant action. So for that, we will create another file for events which are expected from the view model to the UI. This will be a sealed interface, and in that we will define a data class and name it as navigate next, and the value would be app strings students event, and from our students view model in here we will create a shared flow and name it as this will be private one events mutable shared flow, and the type will be app screens, and we will expose press Ctrl D to copy of this line and expose a public immutable version of this events.flow as shared flow. And now we will emit our event next screen navigate next event to this shared flow. So for that we will create a variable named as new event students event dot navigate next and pass the next screen object, and events dot emit this event new event. Actually, this shared flow will contain the students event, and we will emit the new event which is the navigate next event. And as this emit function is a suspend function, so we cannot call this from a normal function. So we will wrap our function body in vModels call dot launch. So now we are emitting that event from here. Now we will listen that event on our UI side. For that we will use launch effect method and pass a key in true. So in the body of this function we execute a certain code only once, not on every recomposition of the screen. So here view model dot events dot collect latest event, and we use when condition here to understand to make branches for each event, and currently we have only one event which is navigate next. Now here we need to send this navigate next information back to our main activity in here where we have our nav controller to give the instructions to navigate to the next screen. So for here we will pass a function here named as navigate next, which take parameter app strings unit, and we will call this method navigate next and pass the value event dot value which is the next screen information. So we will come back to our main activity, and from here we will provide the body of this lambda function, and in that we have the value. So we use nav controller dot navigate and pass the value in it which is the next screen. So now let's we are run, and actually before that we need to remove this error warning here that we need to provide the on action body here on action. Okay, now we will run and verify that our navigation is working as expected. So before that I will remove this code of log and run it. Okay, so our app is up and running. So now if we tap on this floating action button, then we will navigate it to our next screen, which is student details screen, and we can press back to navigate back and press again to come to this screen. Now we will apply the navigation back process that let's say user is navigated to this student details screen, and if user tap on this back button, back icon, then user should be navigated to the previous screen. So for that we will do the same process which we do for our this students listing screen, that we first create the view model for this screen and then create a field interface which contains the actions which can be performed on this screen. So first we will create the view model named as add student view model, and this will be a normal class and inherit from view model. And in here we will create another interface named as add student action, and this will be a sealed interface. So we will have this action, this back icon. So we will name it as name it this action as back icon on click. So data object back icon on click, add student action, and we will handle that action in our add student view model. So in here we will create a method named as onAction, and in that we will pass our this action type as student action, and there we will use when condition to get the possible options we have. So press Alt Enter and add remaining branches, and in that we will handle the back icon on click action. So now we will pass this action from our UI. So for that, in our UI, we go to our add student content, and in that we will define a parameter which is a lambda function named as onAction, which have parameter add student action return nothing unit, and we will trigger this on action when user tab on back button. So in our top app bar we have our arrow back button here, and when user tap on this, then this clickable body will be triggered, and from here we will call our on action and provide the action back icon on click, and also remove this warning here that error that we need to provide the on action body. And now we will go to our add student screen, and in here we'll provide the on action body, and from here we will send our action to the view model. So for that, first we need the view model instance, so we will inject that in our method using view model, which is coming from the view model composable dependency. And now we will call our this view model dot on action method from here. So our action have been sent to the view model. So in view model we will create a method named as back icon on click. We will call this method as this doesn't exist, so we will press Alt Enter to create this function. And in this function we will need to tell our UI that we want to navigate back to the previous screen. So for that we need to send an event from our view model to the UI. So first we will define the events for this screen. So we will create a interface named as add student event, which will be a interface, seal interface, and in that we will define an action named as data object, navigate back and inherit from student event, In our add student view module, we will hold and emit these events through shared flow. So we will create a private data member named as events, which would be mutable shared flow, and which have a type at student event. And we will press Control D to make a public immutable variant of this one to access on our UI side. So events dot add shared flow. And now in here, from here, we will meet our new event here. First, we will create a new event. As new event, add student event dot navigate back, and now we will emit our event like this. And as this emit function is a suspend function, so we cannot call it from normal function. So we will wrap our this method in view model scope dot launch. Now we are emitting the event here, so we need to listen that event on our UI side. So we use launched effect, pass a key co in it, and in here we will collect these event, collect latest, use the when condition here to get the branches of for these events. So currently we have only one event, so we will call, we need to send this call in here to call the use the nav controller from here. So for that we will define a lambda function here named as navigate back, which take nothing as a parameter and return nothing. And we will call this method from here navigate back. And in our main activity here we will define the body of this navigate back, and from here when this will be triggered, then we will navigate back to the previous screen using nav controller dot navigate up. Okay, so now to present that information on our UI, we need to show some dummy data here. So before that, we will define a specific model for this data. So we will create a package here named as models, which have student model, which would be a data class, contains information for this for a student. So we have ID, name, phone number, address, and gender. So ID would be integer, and name would be string, phone number, and address. And for gender, we can use int, let's say 0 for male and 1 for female. But as if we use integer for the gender representation, then we need to apply and if condition on our UI set to present a specific label against each integer value. There is another approach for to here to store that information. We can define a enum class named as gender enum, and which have male and female two types. So we can use that gender enum here to present that information. And next I will move it after the name parameter, and next we will create some dummy students information to mock data to present in our UI. So for that, currently this is a static this is a static UI. Every card is showing a single information, a one type of information only. So we will here create a method get mock students, which will return array list of student model, return table to area list of dot apply and student model ID 1, name Rashid Saleem, gender, phone number, and address. Okay, so now we need to store, let's say, 20 students information. So we will use a loop here, uh, for for loop here, and use this and move this in this for loop. And in here we will use the I array ID and also append this at the end of the name. So now in this way we will get the list of dummy students, although there will be only difference of two difference in the students ID and name, but this will be a understanding to let us know that we are presenting that dummy or mock students list on our UI. Okay, so now we need to present our mock student in our student screen listing. So for that, currently we don't have any UI state for data state for our this screen. So for our this student screen, we will create a data state, which would be a data class, and we will name it as students UI state, and this will have the list of the students which we will present, and initially it will be empty, and to present to hold that information in our view model, we will use another flow which would be a state flow. So we will name it as underscore UI state and mutable state flow, and the initial value of this state flow will be the empty UI state of the screen, which would be students UI state, and we will expose the public immutable variant of this UI state by pressing Ctrl D, remove this private access modifier, and rename this, and in here we will transform our state to as state flow, which would be an immutable version of this. And now we need to update our students list in this UI state. So we will do that in our init block, and in here we will access that list. So currently we don't have defined any data source for our students data. So we will for time being we will create a global state for this app. We will name it as app state, which would be an object, and in that we hold that students list temporarily. So private val students is equal to mock students. So when app will run, then this app state object will be created in start, and this will retain until the complete life cycle of the of the app. So to get that list, we will expose it with a public method named as get students, which will return the students list. Okay, and now we will access this method to get this list in our students view model. So here we will get the students app state dot get student, and update these students in our this UI state. So UI state dot update it.copy and set the students here. And when this information will be updated in our UI state, then we need to show this reflection on our screen side or on our UI side. So for that, we will go to our home screen, and in here we need to observe the get the state and get the state for this screen, and also observe that if any change happen in that UI state, then that should be reflected on our UI. So for that, we will create a variable named as UI state and view model dot UI state. We have accessed the UI state. Now we will use collect as state with lifecycle method, which will observe the changes in this UI state, and if any change happen, then this UI state variable value will be updated, and on base of that, recomposition will happen to reflect the information on the UI. So now we need to pass this UI state into our students content, and in students content we will define the parameter named as UI state, and in here we will present our students item in the list. So we will use another method which take a list of items, and in that we will pass this students list, and in here we will have the student object. Now we will pass this student object to this list item to present it in details. So we will pass the item here. For that, we will define these parameters here. Then we will access it. So student, student model, and when you and also when user click on this item, then we also need to send that event back. So for that, we will define the lambda function here with empty parameters. Okay, so now we will present the student detail in these items. Student.id, student.gender, student.name, phone number, student.address, and when user tab on this item, this list item, we also need to capture that event or that action as well. So we will you trigger this on click method against this on click method on the card. Okay, and we also provide some parameter here. So let's say this need student model. So we will get that student from our mock students. These are only for the preview purpose. So if you don't want to see the preview in the Android Studio, then you can skip this part and comment this one. So here we will pass the student here, and on click we will provide the empty body. And now we will come back to our student content, and in here we will pass the student, and on click currently we will leave it empty, and so yeah, these are the changes we which require. We will pass the UI state here. So let's pass the empty UI state. Pass the UI state here, and next is first see the listing in our app. So let's run the app and see effect in our device. Okay, so our app is successfully up and running, and we are able to see our uh, listing in here. Okay, so now our next action would be when we will tap on any this item, then we will be able to see this student details screen with the relevant student information on which we have tap on. So for that, we will use this on-click method. And in this body, we will send an action to our view model, student action dot item on click, and pass the student in it. And now we need to create this one because we haven't created it before. So press Alt Enter and create let's do it manually. So here we will create a data class item on click which take value which is student model and inherit from students action. And now we need to handle this action on in our view model. So in here we will have this error on when conditions because we are not covering all the branches. So press Alt Enter, add remaining branches, and in here we will item on click and pass the student information here. So action dot value. Now we will press Alt Enter to create this function, and in this function we navigate to the next screen with the student information. So it is recommended by Android that we should not pass the complete object from one screen to another. We should pass a specific ID from one screen to another, and on the next screen we use that specific ID to get the that object detail from a single source of data. So we do the same thing here. We only pass the student ID to the next screen. So for that, here we have next screen app screen dot add student, and we will pass that information in this add student object. So we will do some changes in it, make it as data class, and provide the student ID in it, which would be integer, and by default it has -1. We will name it as student underscore ID, student ID. Let's do it in this way. And now we will pass the student ID to this constructor, so value dot ID, and then we will emit a new event, students event dot navigate next, and pass the next screen in it, and events dot emit new event. As this is a suspend function, so we will wrap it in view model scope dot launch, and we are seeing some error here. This is because we haven't created the call the constructor here. So in this way this will error will be removed. And now we will go to our add student view model, and when user will land on this student detail screen, then we want to retrieve that argument from the uh, URL or URL path of this screen. So for that we will inject saved state handle in our view model, and in the init block we will do the operation here. Let's make a column method named handle navigation arguments. We will create this method, and in here we will get the student ID. So student ID would be saved state handle. Actually we need to make this private wells to access that in our other methods. So saved state handle dot get int value, and the key would be student ID, and if it is null, then we will return from here, and if it is not null, then we will check that if student ID not is equal to if student ID is equal to -1, then we don't pass any ID in it, so we will return from here. And if both of these conditions are not true, then we have the actual student ID and we will get our student object against that ID from our app state. So student is equal to app state dot get student and pass the ID into this method. And as this method isn't exist yet, so in our app state we will create this method get student, which will take student id as integer and return this student model, and which will be a nullable. So it might be possible that the student doesn't exist in against that specific id. So here we will get this student like students dot first first or null, and in here if id is equal to the provided id, and and actually we will return it from here like this. So here we will get the student object if that exists in the list, and if it doesn't exist, then this will return null. So we will come here, and if we will be getting null from this method, then we will return from here. And if we have the student, then we will update that student in our UI state. So UI state looks like we haven't created the UI state of this screen yet. So for this screen, this will only holds the student object detail. So, but still we need to create a separate data class to present the UI state of this screen. So here we will create another file which would be a data class, and we will name it as add student UI state, and in that we will have one argument only, student model, and by default it will contain the empty student. So student model dot empty. Yeah, this empty doesn't exist. We will create a companion method here which will return the empty student. All parameters would be empty and the id will contains -1. For this one we will have the default value. Okay, so now our initial state would be empty, and we need to hold that information, that state in our view model. So for that, we will use just for UI state mutable state flow, which have empty UI state, and to expose this UI state to the screen, we will expose a public variant of this one, but this would be immutable, so cannot be modified after uh, with out the scope of this view model. UI state dot as state flow, and now we will update this UI state. So UI state dot update it dot copy, and in that we will update our student object which we received from our app state. And now we need to present that UI state in our screen. So for that, here we will get our UI state. We don't only just get the UI state, we also want to observe the state that if any value changed in this object, then that should be reflected on our UI. So for that, we will use collect as state with lifecycle. And now we will pass this UI state in our add this component. And if we then we go to this component, and in here we will define the parameter here, and now present our student detail in the relevant fields. Here we will have the student name, so UI state dot student dot name, and here we will have phone number, and here will be gender selected based on the current value, so UI state dot student dot gender. If gender is equal to gender enum dot male, then this option radio button will be selected, and if it is female, then this button will be selected. And also provide the address. Now when user tap on back button is already implemented, we will handle this save action later. So here we are seeing some error here. We need to provide the UI state here, so we will provide the empty UI state here. Now we need to work on if we want to add a new students. Let's say if we are at this stage, and if we want to add a new student, currently we are not able to type anything in our these fields. We are not able to type anything in here, so we will handle these actions, and when user tap on save button, then we will save their student in our listing and navigate back to the previous screen, and on the previous screen that new inserted student should be reflected on our UI. So for that, first we will go to our add student screen action, and in here we will define the action for each input fields which we have: name, phone number, gender, and address. So we will update that in action. So we will create a data class named as update name, which have name value, and we will press Ctrl D to create multiple copies of this. And here we will create a data class named as phone number, which will be a string, and update gender, which have gender value enum value, and the last one is the address, which will be a string. And now we need to pass this action from our UI. So in our add student content, here we will call send that action to our view model. So we will call on action, and in that we will pass the action update name, and provide the changed value which we received from this text field. And same for this phone number, just the action will be changed which is specific to this phone number. So update phone number, pass a value in it, and when user tap on this mail radio button, then we will update the mail, send mail enum to our view model. on action, add student action and update gender. In pass the value gender in a male, and for female we will pass the female gender, female enum, and for the address here we will pass the address on action, update address, and pass the value. And when user tap on this button, then we will send another action named as add student action dot save on click. So this action haven't been defined yet, so we will go to our this action file, press control click, and in here we will create a data object and name it as save on click. So now we have defined these action and also send these action from our UI to view model. So now it is the time to handle these action in our view model. So in here we will handle these actions. So we are getting this error because we are not covering all the branches. So we will press Alt Enter and add remaining branches. And in here we will call the different methods one by one. Update address, pass the action dot value in it, and where we will press Alt Enter to create this function, and in that we will update our student. So updated student will be UI state dot value dot student dot copy, and in that we will update our address. We are making the copy of our student object. This is because our this student model is immutable. So after creation of this object, we cannot modify this. But if we want to do any change in any specific value, then for that we make a new copy of this project, this object, and only update that specific value in our constructor parameters. So this will help us, the compose UI, to understand that if any object has been changed, it will identify it based on the memory address which object has. So here we will update the UI state it.copy and pass the student in it, updated student. And same for the other one. So update name, pass the value in it, press Alt Enter, and in here we will again have updated student, ustate.value.student.copy, and pass the name in it, and then update the UI state. it.copy and student would be is equal to updated student, and for same for the update phone number, action.value, press Alt Enter to create this function and update our student object. Phone number is equal to value, and update our UI state, and same for this gender. Press Alt Enter to create this function, and in that we will update our student model, make a copy of it, and update the gender value, and now update our UI state. And the last one is to handle this save on click. So we will create a method named as save on click. Press Alt Enter, and in here we will get our student object from our UI state. So here we will check a condition that if the ID of the student is -1, then it's a new student and we need to insert it. So if student dot ID is -1, then we will call the app state dot insert student method and pass a student in it. And if ID is not -1, then we are let's start with this insert student only, and we will handle the other case later. So, so here we will insert the student and then navigate back to our previous screen. So for that we will emit a event. Let's say create a method here named as navigate back and wrap it into view model scope dot launch because we will be going to emit event in this method, and we will cut this code from here, paste it in here, and now we will call this navigate method in the back on click action. Against back on click action, here we will call the navigate back method, and we also as we have made this reusable method which we can use as a certain situation, so here we will call this navigate back method that after new student is inserted, then we should be navigated to the previous screen. So here we currently don't have this insert student method in our app state, so we will create a method here named as insert student, which have student object as a parameter. And in here we will, as we are inserting a new student, so we don't have the ID yet, so we will get the ID from our list, but we will calculate the ID on our side based off the length of the list. So new ID would be students dot size plus 1, and we will update our student dot copy ID is equal to new ID, and then we will add that student in the list. Student dot add new student, actually updated student. So we have complete the process here, and now let's run and verify this in our device. Actually, before that, as we have too much lengthy list here, so I will decrease the number of the items in the list. So for that, I will go to student model, and in here I will make this 1 to 3, not 1 to 20, make it 1 to 3. So we initially have 3 items in our students listing screen. So let's run it again. So we have here 3 students here. So if we insert a new student, let's name as Sajid Saleem, phone number any 12345, and address would be Lahore, Pakistan, and press tap on this save button, and that new student have been inserted in our list. If we create another student plus 923245 something and name it as Lahore, Pakistan, and let's insert entry of the female gender. So let's name any XYZ, let's say shorter name Hina, 92 anything, and press female, Lahore, Pakistan, tap on save, and that student have been added. Now we need to work on if we want to update an existing students. Let's say if we tap on this student too, then if and want to update that information, currently it's not covered. Let's say if I update this one and press on save, and this is not updating, actually it's inserting that student. So we want to update this student, so for that we do a little modification in here in our add student view model. Here we will identify based on the ID of the student. So if student.id is -1, then it's mean it's a new student which we want to insert. and if it's not -1, then we will update that student. So update student and pass the student here. And in here we will go to, as we don't have this method, so we will go to our app state, and in here create a method named as update student. So here we will first find the index of list item index of this particular student. So item index students dot index of first if id is equal to student dot id. So this function will return us the id index of this particular student where this id will be matched, and if item won't found, then this will return -1. So we will handle the -1 case here. If item index is equal to -1, then we will return from here. And if it is not -1, then we will update that particular student at that index. So item index is equal to student. So this will the small change which we need. So let's run and see the effect on our app. So here, if we tap on first student and update the name, and also let's say type update in the address, and tap on save, and that information has been reflected here. And if we try to update this, let's say change the name to Sajid Saleem, and change the address, let's say Raivan, and tap on save. That information has been reflected here. Okay, so now we need to work on this delete icon, that if we want to delete any existing students, then when user tap on this delete icon, then this confirmation dialog will be shown to the user. So if user tap on yes, then that specific current student will be deleted, and we will be navigated to the main screen listing, and that deleted student will also be removed from this list as well. So, so first we need this delete confirmation dialog. So for that we will, let's do it in this way. We will create a package here named as dialogs, and in that we will create a file named as confirmation dialog, which would be a file, and in that we will have the composable confirmation dialog, and in that we have dialog on dismiss request, and in that we will have the body. So we will have the body here as confirmation dialog content, and we will make this composable, a separate composable for the UI of this dialog. So here we will create another composable named as confirmation dialog content, which will take modifier and two actions, two lambda function, one for yes and one for no. We will use a generic naming convention for these lambda function. Let's say confirm on click and dismiss on click. And in our UI, we will use a card here to present this present this dialog. So card, and in this card we have first the initial things for this card are, this card should contain the full width of the screen. So modifier dot fill max width, and and we also need to Uh, in start, we have text here, so we will use our text composable. Do you want to delete this record? And after that, we will apply some spacing here. So we will use spacer for that. Modifier dot height, let's say 30 dp. Press Alt Enter to import it, and then we will have these two buttons. As these two buttons are showing in a single row, then we will use a row composable for that, which have full width of the screen. So modifier dot width fill max, and in that we have button first button on click, which have text yes, and the color of this one would be button default colors dot button colors dot copy, and the container color of this one should be red. So container color would be material theme dot color scheme dot error error container, and content color would be material theme dot color scheme dot on error, and and we will create another button for the uh, for no. So here we have on click, provide the text no, and both buttons should take equivalent width in this row. So for that we will use modifier dot weight 0.5f, and use the same weight for this button. So these two will have the same width in this row. And now we need to apply the padding between these content and the card. So for that, we will wrap these content in a column and provide our padding here, 20 dp. We cannot apply that padding on this this card to apply the padding between content, because if we apply the padding to this, then that padding will be applied outer the space in the outer area of this card. If we want to apply padding between this content and the border of this card, then we need to wrap our content in the column and provide the padding here. And okay, and we also need to apply the padding between these two buttons. So here we will use the spacer modifier dot width, let's say 6 dp, and uh, we will pass this modifier to this car to apply any kind of styling to this one, and we will call these lambda function from these buttons. So if we user tap on yes, then we will call confirm on click method, and if user tap on no, then we will call dismiss on click method, and and we will present that information in the card content. So we need to also pass these information here. So let's define the parameters in the confirmation dialog arguments. So we will copy these argument from here, paste it in here, and we will pass those thing as it is in our content composable modifier confirm on click, dismiss on click, and And on dismiss request, this will be triggered if user the default behavior is if user tab uh, in the outer space of this screen, then that dialog will be hidden, and if user tab on back button, then that dialog will be hidden. Then in that case, on dismiss request function will be triggered. So in that we will call the dismiss on click method to hide the dialog. So we have done the required changes for this dialog. So let's see the preview of this dialog in our Android Studio. So we will create a function named as preview, confirmation dialog, preview app theme, surface, which have modifier fill max size, and here we will present the confirmation dialog, confirm on click, dismiss on click. Now we will see the preview here. Okay, let's rebuild the project because we are not able to see the preview here. So we are getting some error here. So let's clean our project and rebuild it again. Okay, so now we are able to see our preview in here. In here, our this yes button is not showing as expected. We will do some changes here. Let's say container color would be error and content color should be on error. So now this have been reflected as it is. So now we will use this dialog on our student detail screen. So in our student detail screen here we will have our add student components, add student content, and in here we will present our student here if let's say confirmation dialog, confirm on click, and dismiss on click. And if we see the preview here, okay, to show this dialog, we will define a value in our UI state of the screen. So let's say if user tab on this delete icon, then we want to show this dialog. So in our UI state, we will define a variable named as show confirmation dialog. And if it is true, then we will show our this dialog, and we will define this in our this screen UI state, name it as show confirmation dialog, and by default it would be false. And when user will tap on this icon, then we will send an action to our view model to show the dialog. So here we will pass the action add student action dot, let's say, delete on click, delete icon on click, and we will define that action in here, data object delete icon on click, and student action. Actually this would be a data object because we don't want to pass any data in it. And I will move this to the below this one. And now we will it's just only for grouping purpose only I have moved this in at this second position. So in our add student view model, in here we will see the error in our this when conditions that we are not covering all the branches. So we will press alt enter to add remaining branches, and in here we will show the confirmation dialog. So we will call the method show confirmation dialog and pass a true in it. And as this method doesn't exist yet, so we will create this method by pressing Alt Enter and value. So we will update our UI state, UI state dot update it dot copy show confirmation dialog and pass the value in it. So we are passing the true here, so it's mean this will show the dialog. And now we need to pass these two actions to delete the student and now to hide the confirmation dialog. So we will create these actions, introduce two new actions here, data object delete student. So this should be data object and student action and data object hide confirmation dialog, add student action. And we will send these action from our UI. So in our add student content here, we will send this action when user tap on confirm or yes button. Then we will send the on action delete student. And if user tap on no, then we will send the action hide confirmation dialog. And now we need to handle this action in our view model. So in our view model, we will see an error on this when condition. So we will press Alt Enter to add remaining branches. In here, to hide the confirmation dialog, we will call the show confirmation dialog and pass false in it to show hide the dialog. And to delete the student, we will call the method delete student. And as this method doesn't exist yet, so we press Alt Enter to create it. So here we will first get the student ID from our UI state. So UI state dot value dot student dot ID. So we have the student ID. So now we want to delete that student. So in for app state, we will call the delete student method and pass the ID in it. This method doesn't exist yet. We will create it in few minutes. So now we will call the navigate back method to navigate user back to the previous screen. So before that, we will hide this confirmation dialog, because if we don't hide this confirmation dialog and call this method, so what will happen is user will be navigated to the previous screen first, and then after that this dialog will be uh, disappear. So we want to disappear this dialog first and then navigate back to the previous screen. So for that we will call the show confirmation dialog here and pass false in here. So now we will create we need to create a method in our app state named as delete student, pass the ID in it. So now we will get the item index of that specific student. So we will get item index students dot index of first if dot id is equal to id, and if item, this method will return the index of this list item, or return -1 if that no student exists against that id. So we will apply the check here. If item index is -1, then we will return from here, and if it is not -1, then we will remove the student at this at this index, item index. And yeah, this is thing the it to which we want to implement. So let's run and verify this on our app, on our device. So here if we tap on this third student and tap on delete icon, then we will be able to see this dialog. And if I tap on no, then this dialog will be hidden. And if I tap on yes, then that student will be deleted and we are navigated to our previous screen. And this student also have been removed from the list. So let's remove this, delete this first student, and this also have been deleted. So this is it for today's video. I hope this would be a meaningful information for you. So thank you for watching. Bye.